recent opinion piece in the Los Angeles Times claims that while Senator Dianne Feinstein might have Alzheimer's, she shouldn't be forced out of Congress. In fact, she should be allowed to continue serving through her term, even though the consequences of that could actually be pretty disastrous. So this was written by Mark Barberak, and I don't know why Mark seems to have an affinity for Senator Feinstein here, but she actually recently stepped down from her leadership role in the Senate Judiciary Committee because of all these reports coming out indicating that she was having trouble with her memory. But apparently that's not much of a problem, because in this column he writes, "Stop hounding Dianne Feinstein and let her finish her time in the Senate." So he opened it with a pretty painfully unconvincing argument. He writes, when Dianne Feinstein showed up last week for the Senate's vetting of the Supreme Court nominee, Ketanji Brown Jackson, several notable things did not happen. The California Democrat did not wield the gavel as chair of the Judiciary Committee, because of course she stepped down from that position. She did not hug Lindsey Graham. She did not lose control of her motor skills, confuse Jackson for, say, Associate Justice Amy Coney Barrett, or launch into a hazy reverie. In short, Feinstein was not the doddering, half their husk of her old self that some, eager for the 88-year-old senator to stand aside, suggest she's become. And he acknowledges that everything he listed is a very, very low bar. So he opens his column with that, acknowledges that his opening argument is pretty weak, and then writes, "True, that's not a high bar to evaluate her performance as senior senator from the wealthiest, most populous, most diverse, most bounteous, most cutting edge, blah, blah, blah state in the country. But it's reason enough to stop hounding Feinstein, to leave office and bestow on one individual, Governor Gavin Newsom, the power to unilaterally choose both US senators for 40 million Californians."
Yeah. So
I don't understand his argument. Like, he doesn't really make an argument here. If someone is suffering from Alzheimer's, they are not fit to serve in the Senate. Like, he really doesn't make an argument here otherwise.
Well, I know what he's doing, let me put it that way. And this is not really a story about Dianne Feinstein. She clearly has mental decline. I'm gonna give you the exact details in a second on that. It's really a story about mainstream media and specifically the LA Times, how craven they are in supporting the establishment, no matter what. And this is actually a perfect example, so I kind of want to thank him for writing what they're all thinking. So first on Feinstein, Jane Mayer already did a brilliant story about this. So her staffers will give her briefings. She will instantly forget it. And then she'll get mad at them and say, "Why didn't you give me a briefing on that?" And they will have to repeat the briefing, but like right afterwards. So in congressional testimony that everybody can see on their own, she asked a question of Jack Dorsey, the head of Twitter, and then right after he answered it, she asked the same exact question, including a long quote that she read. Chuck Schumer had a painful conversation with her to tell her she's got to step down from the Judiciary Committee. It was really hard to do, she resisted it. He does it, the next day she forgot. And then he had to redo that incredibly painful conversation again. There's no question that she cannot operate, she cannot function. And the Los Angeles Times thinks, who cares? We got an establishment Democrat. We love the establishment. We support them no matter what. So we're gonna stand by her, even if she literally cannot think anymore. I mean, look, he was just so frank about it. That's why I appreciate it. He says, as Anna read to you, she did not lose control of her motor skills. Wow. She didn't lose control of her motor skills. That's their bar. That's their bar for establishment Democrats. By the way, when progressives run, they eviscerate them. They rip them to shreds. Their bar for progressives are through the roof. How do I know? Now, forget me, okay? I don't want to make this personal. So Just Democrats ran a candidate against Dianne Feinstein. But okay, forget Justice Democrats, okay? Kevin DeLeon ran against Feinstein, and he was a perfectly legitimate member of the establishment Democrats, slightly more left wing, etc. The LA Times and all the media were like, no, no, Feinstein is such a great senator. She's a trailblazer. There's no need to replace her. She's great. And they ran defense for her the entire election. So you can't get the truth to people in LA because older voters vote more, and older voters still think that trash like the LA Times is actually news. It isn't news, it's marketing for corporate rule. So this guy at least has the decency to admit it. We don't care. You just roll in her, as he put it, her old husk of her former self. And he says in the piece, if Gavin Newsom replaces her, he's gonna replace her with someone that votes 100% like her anyway. Well, that part is true, okay?
Yep.
By the way, I don't want Gavin Newsom picking two people. He's a corporate Democrat. And then that person will have a giant advantage over a progressive when they run again. I actually, just from an ideological and political point of view, I don't want that. But from a decency and my God, we've got to have a functioning senator point of view, of course he should replace her. It would actually be to the disadvantage of progressives, but he should do it anyway because she clearly cannot function. But here is the LA Times saying, we don't care. As long as they vote for the status quo and they don't raise a stink, just go with it. And by the way, that's not conjecture, because Anna, I'm just gonna do these real quick. He explained later why he really doesn't want her to go. He said that she's neither strongly ideological or performative. What a weird thing to brag about. She has no ideology. So she doesn't care at all about anything. In one of the most progressive states, she's not at all progressive. She doesn't even care about ideology. She certainly doesn't have the voters' ideology. And this guy looks at it and goes, mission accomplished. That girl, way to have no ideology and no thoughts in your head. She never had any thoughts in her head in the first place. Didn't care about politics, ideology, principles at all. And he celebrates it. So he's like, basically he's saying, what do we lose? He said, some, particularly on the far left, would like to see Feinstein go and someone more liberal and theatric take her place. It isn't about theater, you moron. You love the status quo, so if everybody is civil and no one ever fights, you will get what you want, the status quo, where the rich win, corporations win, and none of us get the healthcare that we need, the higher wages that we need, right? He calls that theatrics. In other words, don't fight, don't fight. He repeats it over and over. He says, however, while that might be viscerally pleasing, the practical effect won't be all that great. They always treat us like children, like, oh, that would be viscerally pleasing. No, you're a child who says that a politician serving a very progressive state should not be progressive and should not care at all about the job. And it doesn't even matter if she's an old husk of her former self. And he says, another low bar towards the end, he says, it's not like, he said, quote, it's not as though Feinstein has stopped doing her job as a senator. No, it is that. It's exactly that. And you think, mission accomplished, I wanted the status quo anyway. Last one, he encourages the left to, quote, quit all their carping, and someone younger, louder, and more belligerent isn't going to help. In other words, go back to sleep and let the establishment run everything. Who cares who's in charge and who cares if they're mentally fit? We got exactly what we wanted, corporate rule all the way. LA Times is pure trash. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.